USA Houston. In our live studio audience today, we have members of Bike Houston. Okay, so how many of you actually rode your bike to the studio today? Okay, seriously, ma'am, Inga, how do you look that good and you rode your bike to the...
Oh, you're a makeup artist.
Oh, our makeup artist, all right. Well, you look really great. I think in all transparency, you probably live across the street, don't you?
No.
You actually, what, about 5 miles you rode down here?
Yes.
All right, we're going to talk to Bike Houston a little bit later about their initiative. But we're starting this morning with a very serious topic. We're talking about this because it's happening all around our city, even in areas you would not expect. Houston is #1 when it comes to sex trafficking. We recently caught up with Micah Gamboa, who is the executive director of Elijah Rising. Micah, when we say child sex trafficking, I think a lot of people are still kind of confused as to what that is. In fact, someone the other day said to me, I don't think it's that big of a problem. We would hear on the news if kids were abducted. Yes, you would hear on the news when kids are abducted. But that's what's kind of even more insidious about this is that it sneaks up on the victim and sneaks up on our community.
That's right. Yeah, in fact, we work primarily with adults. However, the majority of women that we work with, they say that they were lured, defrauded, or coerced into the sex trade as children.
Yeah.
And so it's a really prevalent problem. But like as society, we see an adult prostitute,
we think it's voluntary or just walk away, right?
That's right.
Can't walk away for all kinds of reasons. There's definitely the psychological, emotional impact. But I remember a young lady who had been sex trafficked who said to me, I said, you know, you were abducted that morning, raped, and you were on the track that night.
Right.
There was a convenience store across the street, so people were wondering, why didn't you just go to the store and say, I was the abducted girl?
Right.
And she said, because of what they had done to me, one, she goes, but two, they had my parents' address, and they told me they were going to kill my family.
That's absolutely right. We hear that over and over and over, that it's not just physical bondage that keeps these women enslaved, it's emotional, it's psychological, and if you had my child, which has happened multiple times to the women that we've served, I would do anything you told me to do.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Who is exploited? I guess you could almost say everybody who's innocent in this is exploited, but it's adults and children, as we just mentioned. But I think people also seem to think that it's somebody else's child over there.
That's right.
It doesn't happen in my community.
That's right. And something that we found over our last couple of years is there's been a huge uptick in all these different neighborhoods, Memorial, Katy, the Woodlands, Cypress, places that you would not think that your children would be vulnerable to sex traffickers, but because of the advent of technology and social media, even pimps are putting recruiters in high schools.
Yeah, they're at the parties.
That's
they're
right.
at the, And
so we've seen girls from really healthy families be lured into this, where before we hadn't seen that.
Yeah, and when something happened, and then what they'll say to them is, you're going to do this again. It's like, I can't. Well, we have pictures. Would you like all your friends to see what was done to you?
Yep, they'll rape, they'll do gang rape even, and then that's blackmail pornography, and they will use that. We've even had hotel encounters where we've intervened in a hotel for a woman who was 18 years old. She was still in high school, and she was being pimped out by her uncle, and she said, no, I can't. I have to go to my AP English test in the morning.
Wow.
I mean, can you imagine?
Wow.
And so we think as a society, okay, well, if somebody's being sex trafficked, that is 100% of her world. But that's not all the time. That's not all the case. Sometimes it's 20%.
For sex.
Yeah, that's her whole life. But sometimes she's in school. Sometimes she goes to college, right?
All right. You have these Elijah Rising van tours, which, again, people in their daily lives might not see what's going on or notice or recognize what's going on. But when you go on these van tours, you're able to point out some things that are right in your face, and other things where you say you passed this every day and had no clue what was going on with those dark windows in this building.
That's absolutely right. We do 3 or 4 van tours a week all across the city, and so it is incredibly illuminating, if you will, to say, oh, I go to school right there, and that's right by my church.
And you encourage people who might want to help out in this process to go on this tour so you see what's really happening.
Absolutely. It'll be an eye-opener.
Yeah. You also have an Elijah Rising Museum.
Yes, we do. We have one of the only museums in the nation dedicated to awareness of sex trafficking. So in Houston, we've had the privilege to work with law enforcement and brothel owners to shut those places down. And so we've taken those artifacts and recreated spaces so people can walk in and see the underbelly of what sex trafficking really looks like behind the scenes.
Because it is so hard for so many girls and men as well, boys as well, to get out, you have an intervention process.
We do.
What does that look like?
So we open our doors to the community. Any volunteer can come, whether you're skilled or not. We will pair them up with a skilled leader who will brief them, train them, and then we deploy them all across the city again. So we do this multiple times a month. month, and we intervene. If you are being sold in a brothel, we would be there with a rescue number and a tangible way of escape in the moment where you're being exploited.
Yeah, and also people just to learn what to look for. I remember a woman saying that she got in an elevator at a hotel, and she saw 3 girls that looked like they weren't related.
Right.
But if you have 3 young girls around 16, 10, and I think 12 is what the ages were, you're going to be on your phone or you're going to be chatting it up because you should be on vacation or something, right? That's why you're there, this nice hotel.
Right.
And something just kind of didn't sit right with her. And she got off on their same floor. The older girl, looked to be about 16, went to one room. The 2 other girls went to another room.
Wow.
She went down and got security, came up. Sure enough, it was the 10-year-old's first time, 12-year-old's third time.
Wow.
And so had that woman not acted on her intuition,
that's right,
there would have been no intervention. All right, so even when there is intervention and we say you're rescued, you're going to be okay now,
right,
it's not that easy. With that psychological emotional impact, it's not that easy. A lot of restorative work needs to be done.
That's right.
You help facilitate that as well.
Yes, we do. We are opening a facility called Kendleton Farms to do just that, and we'll be opening up 8 beds in the spring for adult survivors. Now, our goal at Kendleton Farms is to have a holistic wraparound services that covers like her mental health, emotional, physical, medical care.
Because there are times when they'll go back to it.
That's right.
And people say, how could you possibly go back? And I remember one girl, she said, well, when I got rescued and I went back to high school, I felt like trash.
Yeah.
And I didn't feel like I belonged.
Yeah.
Because I belonged there.
There's tons of shame, and it's the same reason why do women go back to their abusers? Because they're trauma bonded with their perpetrators.
Yeah.
The women in prostitution have almost 70% of them have PTSD levels that are equal to or higher than combat veterans or rape survivors. And so we're dealing with an entire population that's been very traumatized.
So all of us can do something to stop this. Obviously support the organizations that are doing the work on the front lines. You can donate, you can volunteer, you can be an advocate. You have your gala that's on October 3rd, which I'll be there.
Yeah, thank
that
you.
is sold out, thankfully, but there are other opportunities for people to you can just downright give, for one.
Right.
But also you have other events that come up where they can learn more.
That's right. So van tours are a great way. Come to our museum. It's always open and free to the public. We also have another benefit, a really fun cocktail fundraiser on November 2nd that's open to everybody. They can just go to our website, ElijahRising.org.
Okay, and let me just end with, why Elijah Rising? What's the story behind that name?
Elijah Rising. So Elijah in the Bible, we are faith-based. He was the first person in the Bible to really confront a system of exploitation. The same exploitation that was happening here was happening then. And so he raised up the outcry, and also he raised up a company of people behind him to push against that injustice.
Yeah, amen.
Yeah.
Thank you very much for the work you all do.
Thank you for having me.
There are many ways to support Elijah Rising. To take a van tour, volunteer on an intervention, or make a donation, log on to ElijahRising.org.